Good afternoon. My name is Marie Tyval. I'm a former SWNI board member and Hillsdale Neighborhood Association president and SWNI board representative. As a resident of Southwest Portland and former Southwest Neighborhoods Inc. or SWNI board member, I would like to share some of the actions taken by SWNI Executive Director Sylvia Bogert, Chair Leslie Hammond, and additional board members and members of the board that exemplify a consistent, and for me at least, an egregious lack of transparency and accountability in regards to financial oversight. First, I'll start with a brief overview of how SWNI fits into the City of Portland's bureau structure. The City of Portland's Office of Community and Civic Life, which I'll subsequently refer to as Civic Life, supports citizen engagement through Code 3.96010, which is stated on the Civic Life website, quote, creates a framework by which the people of the City of Portland may effectively participate in civic affairs and work to improve the livability and character of their neighborhoods and the city, end quote. This framework consists of 7 district coalitions that are geographically located to support Portland's 95 neighborhood associations within their respective district coalition boundaries. Our comments today refer to one of these district coalitions, SWNI, an independent 501c3 that is the umbrella organization for 17 neighborhood associations located in Southwest Portland. To be clear, the city is committed to supporting neighborhood associations, which are typically 501c6 organizations. However, they do not receive funding from the city. Instead, Civic Life offers an annual financial grant to 501c3s to support civic participation for neighborhood associations, and for the last 40 years, district coalitions have been the recipients of taxpayer funding. For example, SWNI has received an aggregate of $3.174 million over the last 10 years. And the anticipated SWNI award for fiscal year 2021 was approximately $300,000 of taxpayer funding. I would like to draw your attention to more recent updates in regard to SWNI. On July 9th, 2020, the Portland City Council voted unanimously to withhold city funding to SWNI for fiscal year 2021 due to multiple concerns identified by Civic Life. The City Council also required a forensic audit of SWNI to be completed before deciding whether to fund this 501c3 over another to provide support services to Southwest neighborhood associations. Concerns that inspired these actions ranged from lack of contractual compliance with Civic Life, refusal to comply with required records requests, the misrepresentation of a Paycheck Protection Program loan endorsement from Civic Life, budget questions that remain unanswered, and many concerns raised by Southwest residents and SWNI board members. Specifically, SWNI is consistently out of compliance with its own bylaws and the Civic Life ONI standards of practice as required by its contract with the city. These ONI standards of practice contain requirements to ensure residents' rights to equity, transparency, and accountability. It is common practice for Chair Leslie Hammond in particular to pick and choose which rules apply to fit her narrative and goals. For example, she could choose rules from Oregon Revised Statutes, known as ORS, that govern nonprofits, or ONI standards of practice that govern SWNI's taxpayer-funded contract with Civic Life, or even Robert's Rules of Order. All these apply to SWNI, with the ORS rules providing the broadest guidelines for all nonprofits in the state, and the ONI standards and SWNI bylaws providing greater restrictions for governance. For example, several SWNI board members have raised concerns regarding SWNI's COVID-19 hardship claims and refusal to disclose all loan documentation for the Paycheck Protection Program loan that SWNI received in the amount of $66,332. I'll refer to this loan as the PPP loan going forward. Many feel that SWNI has not experienced COVID-19 related hardship, and a board member resigned from the PPP subcommittee over the handling of the process for determining the use of the funds. Several Southwest residents made public records requests for records related to fiscal oversight, and these requests were denied by SWNI. Civic Life also requested records from SWNI that they are contractually required to produce, and SWNI responded by requiring a fee of $30,885.50 of taxpayer monies from Civic Life before they would produce these records. SWNI residents and select board members are also concerned about issues related to the $160,000 embezzlement by a SWNI employee in 2011, who was prosecuted and served prison time. Specifically, these concerns center on another potential embezzlement beginning as early as 2004 that was discovered at the same time as the 2011 embezzlement, but the SWNI board refused to investigate. Apparently because it potentially implicates then and current Executive Director Sylvia Bogert. I should mention that Sylvia Bogert has been employed by SWNI for 40 years and is currently the Executive Director. We believe this potential earlier embezzlement must be investigated because many SWNI staff and board members who were present before 2011 are still active in SWNI. As recently as 2 months ago, the past treasurer present at the time of the embezzlement and recent interim treasurer Lee Bueller has stated, quote, "There remains a problem," unquote, during the time of the embezzlement. SWNI's consistent response to our inquiries as board members with fiduciary oversight responsibilities has been to deny access, refuse records requests, and charge Civic Life over $30,000 to access these records. Furthermore, several board members have raised concerns regarding a restricted SWNI board account with approximately $10,000, which is 5% of SWNI's operations, that the past treasurer Charlie Van Rossen has stated was, quote, "magical," unquote, in its inception dating back 8 to 9 years. Where did this money come from? In summary, the obvious questions we believe need to be asked in the interest of transparency and accountability for the use of taxpayer money is why are 2 past treasurers identifying problems now that relate back to 8 to 10 years ago? Why is SWNI refusing to be transparent? Why do they refuse to provide board members, taxpayers, and the city bureau responsible for SWNI funding and oversight these requested documents? What are they hiding?
I was a SWNI board member when we discovered in 2011, by the bouncing of SWNI's employees' paychecks, the financial irregularities and defalcations at SWNI, which culminated in the prosecution of SWNI's operations manager, Virginia Stromer. Ms. Stromer pled guilty and was sentenced to 38 months in state prison for embezzling at least $130,000 of taxpayer-provided monies. I was selected by the then SWNI president to be on an ad hoc internal SWNI investigation committee. As we culled through SWNI's financial documents, I realized there was evidence of SWNI's mismanagement of ONI provided funds that preceded 2011. Specifically, I became aware of an American Express card and a bill dating to at least 2004 and perhaps earlier. I say perhaps because most, if not all, of SWNI's hard copy records regarding the Amex card were missing. The existence of a SWNI account had not been disclosed to the to the Amex account had not been disclosed to the SWNI board for at least 7 years after the initial discovery of the $19,000 in fraudulent charges. Rather than disclose the apparent $19,000 fraud to the SWNI board in 2004, SWNI's current and then executive director, Sylvia Bogert, has claimed that she obtained a personal loan to pay off the balance to Amex, concealed the facts from the SWNI board from 2004 through 2011, and apparently made no effort to investigate by whom the Amex charges were made. Only when directly asked by a member of the ad hoc investigating committee at a formal SWNI board meeting did the executive director finally, reluctantly, admit to the SWNI board the previous $19,000 unauthorized credit card charges on the SWNI credit card. It's my opinion that the fiscal management of taxpayer dollars stems from lack of oversight, obfuscation, and omission fostered by SWNI Executive Director Sylvia Bogert. The habit of lying by omission to SWNI's board, SWNI's constituents, and to the Office of Community and Civic Life, or ONI staff about things as minor and mundane as Sweeney's record storage and access to those records in response to OCC's current requests is part of a decades-old pattern and practice at Sweeney and infects the entirety of Sweeney's governance.
I'm the only one that was here today that was involved 10 years ago with the embezzlement problem and stuff. And it was awful. And there's just a little bit that I'm worried about liability for Sweeney.
That's not fair.
It's not an accusation.
So I'm going to start this real quick. I quit. Have fun. This is the stupidest thing I think I've ever seen. This is.
During a May 9th emergency board meeting, Sweeney President Leslie Hammond stated, "We have sufficient money in the board fund to pay the loan off should we need to. The money has been there for 3 to 4 years." Executive Director Sylvia Bogert stated, "At the end of the last fiscal year, the board had $80,000. If these numbers are true, what hardship exists that necessitates a PPP loan for Sweeney?" When asked, the Sweeney Executive Committee refused to release all loan application documentation for fiscal oversight around claims made to secure the loan. Current hardship claims seem unclear given that Civic Life grant funding remained in place through the end of June and adequate financial reserves to cover the period of payroll and utilities through the end of the PPP loan funding period existed.
It doesn't say you had to fire people. All it says is you were impacted, and Sweeney was definitely impacted. Sweeney will continue to be impacted, as well as many, many other companies. And I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is probably a restaurant, and 10 is the Los Angeles Lakers, who were entitled to COVID or to the PPP money. Well, Sweeney's about an 8.
Former treasurer, current auditor, and SWRHL rep for Sweeney, Charlie Van Rossen, stated that Sweeney rated an 8 out of 10 on the scale for need for the monies. Meanwhile, all grant funding to Sweeney was expected to remain at the same level as fiscal year 2019-20, which claim covers 85% of their total revenue. The remaining 15% is a mix of donations and ad revenue, the bulk of which comes from City Bureau advertising. Sweeney, who received $66,332, opted to repurpose Civic Life funds and create a CEAP $1,000 grant award to neighborhood and business associations who claimed COVID impact. They would allot $25,000 to repurpose Civic Life monies to COVID relief and then claim hardship for the use of the PPP loan. In other words, creatively moving money.
Yeah, quick question. The restricted account for the Sweeney board of $10,377.57. It appeared for the first time in July 2019, and I wasn't around, but I went through the minutes and I saw no discussion or explanation of what it was. It's still there. And since we're busy looking for funds, I'm wondering where that account came about and what are the restrictions on its use? Ted. Teddy.
Charlie, do you answer that question?
I would love to.
Thanks.
Because there wasn't a separate entity set up, a separate set of books for the restricted account. It was done through SWNI itself. Normally, you would have seeded, which that's what this represents as seed money. You would have seeded the entity with $10,000. So this was the original seed money that was transferred over from SWNI to the restricted account to get it started before other monies were transferred in that were specifically designated to the neighborhood associations. The money was also used at the time because there were occurrences when some neighborhood associations needed funds before the funds were there, and so the seed money was just sort of filling a gap. So that money has been there since the creation of the bank account, which I don't remember when it was set up. 8 years ago? 9 years ago? I don't know when it was set up. I don't remember, but that's what that represents. It hadn't been accounted for that way previously until I came on as treasurer. There was always just this difference between the total of the restricted account and or the restricted assets and the restricted bank account. There was just this magical difference that the bank account was always higher, which is good news, because if it was lower, you'd be concerned. You'd go, wait a minute, how come I don't have money in my account? So it's basically just seed money.
Well, I still am not clear. It looked like a plug to me. It was just there to balance what was out of balance.
Thank you. I'm just confused. If 2011 it was used as seed money, why was it never removed and applied to the operations expense line item 9 years ago? If it had a purpose and that purpose was served, why was it never removed once these accounts were established?
Yeah, I don't know. You're right. It should have been documented.
This is probably not the right time exactly to do this, but I see we're paying rent. We're paying rent to the city. I would propose that one of the things we do in our financial plan is stop paying that rent until such time as we get our major money back from the city.
Thank you. Teddy, I've been, it's been easier with treasurer's reports that come with financials every month historically. And I noted that last month and this month, there's no treasurer's report to contextualize the financials that we're looking at. Is it your intention not to provide those reports going forward?
She's talking about the pager that we
I know what she's talking about, but it's not my intention to not provide it.
But you don't have one for this month and you didn't last month. Should we expect one next month?
It's not my intention to not provide it.
Is it your intention to provide it next month?
He's already answered that question.
We now know that SWNI allocated the PPP loan funding to payroll and operations for July and August 2020, claiming COVID-19 financial hardship. However, as stated in the June 2020 Treasurer Report, completed by current SWNI Treasurer Teddy Okonekwa, the sole justification for SWNI using the $66,332 PPP loan was due to City Council withholding fiscal year 2021 funds. In addition, one of the 4 members of the SWNI PPP Loan Subcommittee, Catherine Daly, resigned over concerns about the process for the decisions made to use PPP loan proceeds. The remaining 3 members of the subcommittee are Teddy Okonekwa, Charlie Van Rossen, and Lee Bueller, who was the SWNI treasurer at the time of the 2011 embezzlement. To be clear, The members of the PPP subcommittee are the current treasurer, Teddy, recent past interim treasurer, Lee, and the treasurer, Charlie, who abruptly resigned in October 2019 and was subsequently hired to audit the books he oversaw as treasurer. Finally, it's worth noting that the PPP subcommittee never did meet before the PPP loan forgiveness application was submitted and the executive officers moved to use the PPP funds. After the City Council decision on July 9th to withhold the fiscal year 2021 funding from SWNI hired attorney Simon Wang to challenge Civic Life's forensic audit and records request. The board approved $15,000 on July 22nd for legal fees, which is over 20% of the organization's financial reserves. At the very least, this could be seen as an unusual tactic to take against SWNI's long-standing partner and principal funder, Civic Life. Perhaps this is why SWNI's other largest funders, the Bureau of Environmental Services and West Multnomah Soil and Water, also removed their respective funding from SWNI in early August and placed their programs and staff with another organization. Other neighborhood associations and organizations with money held with SWNI are seeking to remove their funds with similar concerns. The PPP loan may also have given SWNI the financial means to hire an attorney to represent them and assume a $15,000 expense. We understand that another $10,000 has been discussed to be allocated for legal fees against the City of Portland for a total of $25,000. This significant investment in legal counsel can be contrasted to SWNI's lack of support in bringing equity and inclusion training to the board in October 2019. The motion to bring equity and inclusion training to board members was voted down by 15 board members. Board members who voted no were the current SWNI VP, Steve Mullinax, and current Secretary, Janet Hawkins, as well as Charlie Van Rossen, Don Bach, Gary Rundy, Catherine Christensen, Michael Kaiser, Becky Lindquist, Fran Laird, George Varanis, Jackie Phillips, Will Fuller, Nancy Seaton, Maripat Hensel, and David Martin. Board members who abstained were John Gibbon, Sharon Keast, Ron Burian, and Laura Campos. The only board members who voted yes were Shannon Hiller-Webb and myself, Marie Tyval. The board remains made up of the same people, some for decades, and they merely change positions, leaving little room for new residents to join and participate, and keeping the same power structure advancing the agenda. Other questions about financial impropriety concern a SWNI board restricted account. On the fiscal year end, June 30, 2020 SWNI balance sheet, there is a restricted asset account identified as RS-board of approximately $10,000. The June 30, 2019 balance sheet has no such account. But the following month, on July 31st, 2019, this line item account first appears. Where did the money come from, and what sorts of restrictions are on these funds? Are these monies being used to finance current operations, including legal expenses? While this may not seem like a large amount, it is 5% of the total budget, and these questions continue to go unanswered by the executive director, board officers, and board members. When former Treasurer Charlie Van Rossen was asked where the funds originated, he said it was, quote, seed money, unquote, from 8 to 9 years ago, and that you would have to go back that far to determine the origination of the funds. In the September 2020 board meeting, Executive Director Sylvia Bogert states it was seed money, again, to open the account and cover initial expenses, and when asked why it was never accounted for over the remaining 9 years or moved into another account, her answer at the September 23rd board meeting was, quote, I don't know, you're right, it should have been documented better, unquote. These answers from the executive director and treasurer to the board do not inspire confidence from several board members, and it is our hope that the results of the forensic audit will provide answers to these questions and many others. SWNI has also claimed COVID-19 hardship due to declining donations. However, it has been difficult to ascertain how donations are accounted for in the financial reports, as SWNI may only receive $5,000 annually while they accept donations on behalf of the 17 Southwest neighborhood associations into restricted accounts and act as a holding agent. How is SWNI accounting for the donation line item? Do the amounts reflect SWNI donations or neighborhood association donations? It's also interesting to note that Civic Life provides grants to district coalitions on a reimbursement basis, which means that unused taxpayer funds are returned to Civic Life if they are not used by the end of the fiscal year. However, we understand that SWNI utilizes the practice of prepaying expenses such as postage in order to retain unused Civic Life funds at the end of the fiscal year. This is supported by a statement made by Charlie Van Rossen, former SWNI treasurer, when asked by board member Javier Moncada at the January 23, 2019 board meeting about the credit card liability of approximately $2,500 as of June 30, 2018, during the 2018 financial statement review. Charlie Van Rossen stated that, quote, "The balance was high due to purchases made to use up grant funds by the end of the fiscal year," unquote. Again, it was a high credit card balance that was called into question for the potential pre-2011 uninvestigated embezzlement implicating current Executive Director Sylvia Bogert. It is concerning that yet another credit card balance is currently being called into question. Additional fiscal concerns board members have inquired about are potential overtime paid to salaried staff, overtime management in general, how the twice annual SWNI cleanup payroll expenses are being accounted for, and the cash donations raised are being applied from the event, as approximately $36,000 has been raised from 2015 to 2019. Once again, SWNI chooses not to provide answers. Finally, as recently as last week at the September 23, 2020 board meeting, SWNI Treasurer Teddy Okonekwa was asked if he planned on submitting a treasurer's report to the board in the future, since he neglected to provide a treasurer's report for the August and September board meetings. Mr. Okonekwa stated 2 times that, quote, "It's not my intention to not provide it," close quote, effectively declining to answer the question. While Civic Life's laudable mission is to facilitate civic engagement with the system of district coalition and neighborhood associations, many of us know now that our ability to participate fully in civic affairs is quite literally virtually impossible at SWNI. We hope the forensic audit will provide answers to the questions many of us have been asking for months, and that City Council will take appropriate actions to hold SWNI accountable. Thank you again for your time today.